Holly Valance was a star on Neighbours and a singer as well. He married a billionaire. A bit of a Trump fan now. Anyway, she was at the launch of a new conservative group in London yesterday and talked about her ideological journey.
Have you always been a right-of-centre person, or is that, are you a conservative? Where are you politically?
I would say that everyone starts off as a lefty and then wakes up at some point after you start either making money, working, trying to run a business, trying to buy a home, and then realise what crap ideas they all are, and then you go to the right.
Joining me are Daniel Weil, Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, and Evelyn Ray, Sky News presenter, a regular commentator on this show. Daniel, how true is this?
Well, exactly, Andrew. I think that the point there is that as people work, as they take on responsibility, as they start to raise a family, own a home, they begin to understand the realities of life. They're more immersed in the real economy. They understand and observe the negative impact that a lot of government decisions that can have. I mean, just look at the red tape, the green tape, the cost of living, energy prices, and so many of the challenges associated with that. It's inevitable that as people become immersed in the real world, they become more conservative, not necessarily ideologically conservative, but temperamentally conservative, where they build up their assets, they build up lots of things in their life, and they naturally want to protect that against the encroachments of those from government and on the left. And I think it's such an interesting example of that, Andrew, and something that we're seeing much more across our society.
Yes, I must confess that I twice worked for the Labor Party. And as for Steve Price, one of our presenters, the less said, the better. Shame on you, Steve. We know where you've been, where I do anyway. Evelyn, is it true of you as well?
She absolutely nails it. It's 100% true. The lefty position is usually one which is very sheltered, moronic, and naive. You know, it's students who have never interacted with the real world. It's university lecturers who have never ventured outside of their institutions. And it's politicians who have never held a real job. It's a conclusion that unintelligent people come to with partial bits of information, but when they meet the real world, the world of personal responsibility, they very soon realize that the best person to govern their own lives is not some faceless bureaucracy or mindless politician, it's themselves. And good on her for saying it, good on her for saying it out loud. I hope that people listen and take heed, especially young people who might be listening and watching. Learn earlier than most of us do.
Well, for me, always, I think, every kid can dream of the perfect picnic. It's when you have to, as the adult, actually organise one, you realise how easy it is to forget, say, the bottle opener or to fill the gas bottle. So that's the difference. It makes you more conservative and less likely to trust the dream. But talk about being mugged in reality, Daniel. Just quickly, we were warned in September by the Bureau of Meteorology that summer would be dry because of an El Nino, and that's on top of the warning 20 years ago by Tim Flannery that Sydney was about to run out of water because of global warming. But now warnings that Sydney's biggest dam, Warragamba, is almost totally full, 97%, and could spill any day. How long before the public, do you think, realise the scaremongers can't be trusted?
Well, I think they're starting to realise that, Andrew, and you've been discussing this to your credit for many, many years, Tim Flannery, and the broader issues. And I think it does get to a broader point, which is the monumental failure of so many of our institutions over many years on this issue of climate change and water security and energy security. You have so-called experts making highly erroneous, if not misleading, predictions about the future, often based on ideology rather than science, which is reported in sections of the media without any real accountability or verification of the integrity of the science and the predictions. It then goes into public policy from the left of Labor and the Greens into their public policy. And now we have a situation where we have a shortage of basic critical water infrastructure in our country. This has real world implications for everyday Australians. And we're seeing the exact same issue, Andrew, play out with the whole net zero policy, where we have these wind turbines, solar panels, transmission lines, which simply are not going to be able to provide the energy that we need, make no noticeable difference to emissions. Yet this government in Canberra and also governments across this nation are pursuing it head on. But I'm hopeful, Andrew, that in 5 years' time, we'll be talking about net zero in the same way that we're talking about Tim Flannery and his flagrantly false predictions.
Talk about the naivety of youth, the naivety of youth. There you go. You just proved me right there. Just, Evelyn, I got to tell you about some... I had a number of people, Evelyn, contact me saying they're really upset by the Rockhampton's government-funded Museum of Art. So Rockhampton's got this Museum of Art, quite grand-sounding name. Over the holidays, it had an exhibition by artist Richard Bell, who identifies as Aboriginal, and it works like this. White invaders, you are living on stolen land. I wonder why he doesn't include Asians there, but anyway. And also this, you can go now. And that's a riff that he and our Indigenous Australians Minister and other activists loved repeating on a film, also funded by taxpayers. Have a listen.
James Cook planted the flag down in Possession Island. So that's all he claimed as far as I'm concerned. So everybody should be just shifted there, and then they can apply, you know, for a passport if they want. They can all move to Possession Island, but just go there. You can go now.
You can go now.
You can go now.
You can go now.
Go now.
Are you still here?
You can go now.
You can go now. Off.
Evelyn Ray, why are we funding this kind of division in museums and in film?
Look, let's call it what it is, Andrew. It is taxpayer-funded racism. And you know what? I do not like using that word in 2024. I think it's overused, but this is 100% racist. It is anti-white hate. I mean, I have more of a tan than some people in that video, but that's not the point here. We're seeing an increase in this type of hatred and division more than ever, and it is being peddled by the very people who should be uniting us, which is our Australian government, but they're just throwing money at it right now like it's confetti. You know, almost 30% of Australians are non-white, like you mentioned, and yet only white Australians are being mentioned in the artworks and in the films and things like that. You know, what about the migrants that came over here and helped build our country from the ground? You know, they don't want to mention those things because it is specifically targeted to one group of people. It's the British, it's our history, it is white Australians. And, you know, it shouldn't be funded because it is pure racism, but it is come to be expected from our government and taxpayer. It's rarely to our advantage, and it usually comes at our hurt. And that's exactly what's happening. And I hope that people start waking up to this. We have to be bold with how we go about this and how we say it, because it is racist. It is racist against us. And I'm not going to try and soften it up anymore.
Daniel, I think we've been conned, haven't we? We've had all those welcome to country ceremonies, and then we get taxpayer-funded stuff saying you can go now. How welcome are we really?
Well, that's right, Andrew. We've just been through this with the voice to Parliament. Australians don't want to see this kind of racial division in our society. 60% of Australians voted against it, including, it's important to remember, 40% of Labor voters who voted no to the voice. 55% of men aged 18 to 24 voted no to the voice. So the idea that it was a party political outcome is wrong. It was widespread across the community that Australians do not want the government to be dividing us. They want to be uniting us around our shared values.
The message to the government is learn that lesson. We've had enough. Where do they think this is going to end, for God's sake? Anyway, that's it from me, Evelyn Ray, Daniel Wild. Thank you both so much to you.